The Tradition from Hell. A story by Eby's Heart. Mara and the love of her life, Andy, had been married for 6 years, and they had never been to Andy's village. They met and married in the city because Andy's family didn't want him to marry Mara. Then Andy's father died. "We must travel home for my dad's burial. Our culture demands that I must be there with my children," Andy had told Mara. But Mara didn't like the idea of taking her 2 young children to a village she had never visited before, but she had no choice. 3 days later, they left for the village for the burial. It was a long ride and quite stressful too. "Welcome to Okobo village," the signpost had read. Mara was glad they were finally there. But suddenly, everything went blank. Mara woke up in a strange house, surrounded by angry faces. She tried to get up, but it was as if she was pinned to the couch. "What is going on here? Where am I?" she asked, crying. "You are in your husband's family home," a woman said, frowning. "Where are my children?" Mara asked, still crying. "You mean our grandsons? They are not yours but ours," a man among the angry faces responded coldly. "Where is my husband?" Mara asked, searching for him. That was when they broke the news to her. "You were involved in an accident. My son, Andy, died on the spot, and nothing happened to you, not even a scratch," the same woman said, crying. "And our grandsons are safe." Mara started crying, but a woman gave her a hot slap and shouted, "Shut up. Don't shed a tear here. You have no right to mourn Andy." Mara was confused. "But he was my husband," she said, looking at their shocked faces. "Take her away," the oldest man amongst them ordered. They dragged Mara inside a dark room and locked her up. She was in pain and crying. "Where are my sons?" she asked herself, crying. She managed to find her way to the bed inside the room and sat down. Immediately she sat down, they put the light in the room on, and she saw a headless body lying on the bed beside her. She screamed for help, but no one came. She tried to break down the door in fear. After almost an hour of screaming and crying, a woman came close to the door and said, "That is your husband. Look closely." That was when Mara calmed down and looked. She noticed that the corpse was actually her husband. But why is his head missing? And why is he so dark now? Mara asked herself and started crying again. The next morning, they brought her out and shaved her hair with a razor blade. She started crying and pleading to see her children, but they beat her and refused to listen. To shut her up, a woman told her she would see her children after her husband's funeral. This calmed Mara down a bit, so she kept quiet but silently cried every day. For the 3 days Mara waited and cried, they were doing Andy's father's burial. When they finished, they commenced Andy's own. On the eve of Andy's funeral, a young woman, about Mara's age, sneaked into her room and told her the most shocking thing she had ever heard. "Run. Run for your life now. They bury young widows with their husbands to keep them company in the afterlife." Mara didn't understand the woman, but the woman was in a hurry. "I will only repeat this once. Leave now or perish." "What about my children?" Mara asked, shedding tears. "They are the sons of this family and never yours. That is the tradition. But you can fight for them when you are free. So leave. I will leave the door open for you since it is opened from the outside," the woman said and ran out immediately. Mara got up, crying. She cursed her husband for not telling her things about his people and vowed to get her sons. When it was midnight and everywhere was quiet, Mara sneaked out of the room. She looked around and saw the 2 men guarding her door sleeping on the floor. So she started walking slowly through their midst. They were still sleeping when she got to the bush and wanted to hide there. But one of the men pointed at her and shouted, "She is running away." The other man jumped to his feet and pursued Mara, who started running with all her strength. She didn't even run far when she felt a heavy blow on her face. She fell down and blacked out. Mara woke up in the morning feeling very sore. She was hearing a burial song outside, and the song continued until 12 midnight that day. In their tradition, burying a young person at midnight is best, They believed the person would go to the afterlife without any disturbances from humans, as humans would be asleep by then. So, when it was 12 midnight, the door to the room where Mara was sleeping with her husband's corpse flung open. They carried Andy's corpse and dragged Mara along. They lowered Andy's coffin, tied Mara's hands, and pushed her inside the grave. Her cries and pleas filled the air. But they didn't care after all. This is tradition. Their fathers did it, and they must do it too. How can a young man just die? It is surely his wife's fault, they believed. Once the grave was covered, everyone ran inside to sleep. They must not make a sound or come outside that night, no matter the kind of sound or noise they heard. They all believed the dead would be traveling to the beyond with his wife. A while after they all ran inside, the woman who had informed Mara of their barbaric tradition ran out immediately with her sons. They quickly dug the grave open and pulled Mara out. She was already unconscious when they pulled her out. They covered the grave properly and rushed her to another woman who was a healer and also part of their rescue team. "Do something, she is dying." "I think we weren't fast enough," the woman hurried the healer. They started pressing Mara's chest and performing CPR on her to pass air through her lungs. After several attempts, the healer declared her dead. "We couldn't save this one." "I am sorry," the healer said to the woman. The woman, whose name was Ajaru, started crying. She remembered how she was married into the village at a very young age. She gave birth to 5 sons. Everything was going well for her until her husband fell ill. That was when she heard of their wicked tradition. No one told her about it. They were all waiting for her husband to die so they could punish her for it. The village believed that any man who died before 40 years died because his wife killed him or did not do enough to prevent his death. Luckily for Ajaru, her husband survived the illness. But she noticed that her neighbors were not happy. They were eager to bury her alive. Since then, she vowed to save women like her. Her husband managed to cross 40 years old and died at 42. Any man that asked a married woman out and she refused would threaten to kill her husband and bury her with him. Ajaru was still feeling sad and discussing with the healer how to dispose of Mara's body when they heard her coughing inside. Ajaru almost ran away, but the healer was courageous enough to check if Mara was the one coughing. She saw Mara standing near the window, looking totally lost. "She has woken up," the healer said excitedly to Ajaru. "Maybe she didn't die, as I had thought earlier," she added, looking confused. "She has to leave the village now. If they ever find her, they might realize we have been helping other women they have buried with their husbands escape." Ajaru went in and tapped Mara, saying it was time to go. But when Mara turned around and said, Where are my children? I need my children now," that was when the healer and Ajaru looked at Mara's face and saw something else. Her mouth was dripping with blood, and her eyes were white. They left the room and ran out of the house in fear. "What have we done?" Ajaru asked in tears. "Why did we not attend the burial like the others, so that we could rescue her immediately they left the grave?" Ajaru asked again, crying. "That is not human. I think something else came into her," the healer said, sounding scared. "The village brought this on themselves. We just have to stay away and watch from afar," the healer suggested. They opened the door for Mara, who was consistently calling her children's names. Mara came outside and was floating instead of walking. She headed straight to her husband's family house and started talking in a weird voice. "Give me my children now." At first, Andy's mother looked out through the window but saw nothing. It was still a little dark, so she didn't recognize who was standing in her compound, talking and slurring. Before they could notice what was happening, Mara had entered their house. Andy's mother saw her face to face and froze. She shouted again, "Where are my sons?" But everyone ran out of the house screaming, "Abomination!" Mara, who was floating, left the house and went to their neighbor's house. When she got there, the children of the woman who had lost their father when they were very little and whose mother was also buried with him wanted to run away. But Mara shouted, "Stop! Don't run! It's me, your mother." I am here to fight the unjust tradition of our land, the one that turned you, my children, into orphans overnight." They listened attentively while they cried. Mara's body became a passage for all the women who had lost their lives due to that cruel tradition over the years. They all spoke through her. She went to the palace of their king and set it ablaze. Everyone started running helter-skelter. Anyone supporting the tradition, whether within or outside the village, started feeling unusually ill. The king called the most powerful witch doctor in the village, and they decided to trap Mara. "We cannot allow a woman to dictate how we respect our tradition," the king said angrily. "If she likes, she can set the whole village ablaze. The tradition our fathers practiced will not be abolished in our time." Because they knew she was looking for her children, they took her children to their shrine. Mara, who had been roaming the village destroying things, rushed to the village shrine when her sons started crying there. When she got there, they poured the blood of the animal they had used to appeal to their gods on her. Mara fell on the ground and became quiet. They tied her with palm leaves and put her inside a coffin. Everyone celebrated. The men felt the tradition protected them, and the women, whose husbands were above 40 years old, felt the tradition was protecting their sons from their future wives. They contacted Mara's family and lied that she took her own life because she lost her husband. Her family visited 2 days later and saw her lying in state, tied with palm leaves. They insisted on removing the palm leaves, but the villagers refused. They said her kind of death made them do it. They buried her again, in the midst of her heartbroken family. This angered Mara's spirit even more. So she vowed to bring the village to its knees. Meanwhile, that same night, when the first son of their king, who was living in the city, was taking his shower, Mara appeared and struck him dead. She went around and killed about 10 of their illustrious sons across the country. The next day, the entire village was in serious chaos. What could be wrong? They all asked themselves. The king called all the witch doctors to ask them questions. Everyone pointed at Mara as their problem. They all started proffering solutions. "We have to bring that evil woman out and cut her into pieces before burying her back," one of the witch doctors advised the king. They all agreed to dehumanize her more by cutting her up. "If we do it, her spirit will become unfit to fight from the land of the dead," another witch doctor advised. They dug her up, performed a ritual ceremony, and cut her into pieces. After that, they buried her back. To erase her memory from our land and to give her spirit no reason to attack us again, send her 2 sons to her parents. And after some years, go and bring them back, another witch doctor advised. "That way, we will keep our sons safe and away from an evil wife," another witch doctor chipped in. They finished the ceremony and barred her grave with the collective power from all the witch doctors that were invited. But all hell broke loose when the villagers went to Andy's mother, demanding that she hand her grandsons over to Mara's parents. She refused and pleaded with them to allow her grandsons to stay with her. "They are all I have now. You know Andy was my only son," Andy's mother begged them. They refused and told her that the evil woman her late son married would kill them all if they didn't erase her presence from their village. "Return them within 2 days, or we will send them to their mother in the land of the dead," the villagers ordered Andy's mother. Andy's mother quickly took Mara's children to her in-laws. Her in-laws were very happy, but Andy's mother told them the boys only came for a holiday and that she would return in a week's time to take them home. Her in-laws were surprised because they had pleaded with her to allow the boys to spend even a day with them when they came for their daughter's burial, but she had refused. So Mara's parents decided to investigate and find out why their in-laws sent their grandsons to them unannounced. That was when they heard what had really happened. They were devastated. "How can they do this to our child?" Mara's parents cried, mourning her afresh. Because they were good people, they forgave them but vowed to keep their grandsons away from such wicked people. So they sent the boys to live in Cameroon with their youngest daughter. When Andy's mother had settled with her own daughter to bring the boys to her, she came to Mara's family to take them. But they told her the boys were no longer in the country. She went mad. "How could you?" she cried. She blamed everyone for robbing her lineage of the heirs who would carry on the family name. After quarreling and threatening her in-laws, Andy's mother went home empty-handed. The thought of losing her son and now her grandsons weighed on her so heavily that she ran to Mara's new gravesite. She threw her grandsons' clothes at the grave and scattered all the things they had put in place to bar her spirit. "Go and fight them. I no longer have anything to lose. Go and take their sons from them, just like they did mine," she screamed. Immediately, she threw a knife at the gravesite. Mara got up, took the knife, and left the grave. But what took the knife and walked away were only her hands. Because her body had been dismembered, she became a ghost, with only hands and no body. She went on a killing spree, and by the next morning, the entire Okobo village was flowing with the blood of their men, both home and abroad. As usual, their king tried to remedy the situation. He called the witch doctors from other villages because the ones in his own village refused to come. They went to Mara's grave and found it in shambles. Someone had released her. Someone close to her had released her on purpose to hunt this village, the witch doctor said, shaking his head. They started investigating and found out that it was Mama Andy who released Mara's spirit. They banished her and everything that concerned her family from ever stepping foot in Okobo village. All their efforts to trap Mara's spirit again failed. She continued killing people in the village and even outside the village. Anyone from Okobo was in danger and could sleep and not wake up the next day. This continued for months, and Okobo village became a ghost town. People ran away, even though running away might not save them, but they felt staying back was worse. Until one day, a certain family that had buried 2 of their daughters-in-law with their dead sons returned home and held a proper funeral for their daughters-in-law, while denouncing that evil tradition. After doing that, the family returned with the surviving members and were no longer killed or haunted by Mara's spirit. Before they did the funeral, Mara's spirit cried inside their house every night. But after the funeral and denouncement, they became free. Every other family joined them. They all honored their dead daughters-in-law with expensive funeral parties and mourned them properly. They erected monuments in honor of the daughters-in-law who had been buried alive. The more they did these things, the more the deaths reduced. With time, everyone denounced the tradition, including their king. They collectively, and with one voice, hosted a feast to abolish the tradition. Even the witch doctors had lost 1 or 2 of their sons, so no one opposed the abolishment. Mara's statue was erected in her honor in the village roundabout. They formed folktales about her and sang praises in her name. No one dared to speak badly about her or her children again. It took many years before the Okobo community was able to rebuild their village. Losing their able-bodied young men almost closed the community. There are still traditions that remain barbaric and cringeworthy in some communities and villages. That you have not heard about them does not mean they do not exist. So before you fall blindly in love or say I do, ask questions. Love has never been enough.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.